is here, Anna Jordanova. She's a professor at Charles University in Prague. And I hope this webinar will be very useful for you guys. And if you have any question, please keep it at the end of this webinar and you can ask. Anna, you can start.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I am so honored that so many of you are here today. My name is Anna Jordanova. I am a PhD candidate and also lecturer or teaching professor at Charles University in Prague, in Czech Republic. My field of expertise is contemporary Central Asia, but I also teach academic methods, anything from process tracing to summarizing or comparative analysis and so on. I will try to make the presentation as brief as possible. And if you have any immediate questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them to chat, or you can ask the question directly after the presentation. Just also, Gulhayo, please remind me or just warn me if, for example, I speak too loudly or something happens technically during the presentation. Okay, so I will try to share my screen now. Works well? Great. So, yes. Perfect. So I will minimize this. Great. Okay, so how to summarize? Definitely seems... Yeah, perhaps if you could keep your microphones muted.
Okuncan, please, microphone is uçuring Okuncan.
It would help make the recording. Thank you very much. Make the recording more clear for later use. Okay, summarizing might sound trivial, just anyone can shorten a text. I would just like to advise you with some mistakes I did before, I'm still doing at some point, perhaps to make your work or our academic work and any other writing easier for the future. And of course, there's my email for my university email. If there's any question later about the presentation or about anything related, feel free to drop me an email or send a message or something. Okay, so what summarizing is and summarizing is not about, actually. I tried to find some formal definitions of summarizing just on the internet, and in general, it's brief but as accurate as possible representation of a longer text we have, because we have too long books, too long articles, too long anything, movies, podcasts, anything, and we need to make it brief. We need to make it concise, a bit more digestible, so we can actually use it later for learning, writing, presenting to someone, and just we need to make it more practical. The problem always is compressing or summarizing is about losing information. Yeah? If a book has 600 pages and we make a summary of 2 pages, we are definitely losing a lot of information around. And summarizing is about determining what is actually important, what we need, and what we can cast away, at least for time being. And the decision, what is important and what it's not, it always depends on our actual work, our topic, our interests, our work, the platform we are doing it. Are we writing the summary for ourselves or are we submitting it somewhere? Is the summary going to be part of a larger article or dissertation thesis, or is it just for us summarizing notes from lectures for the final exams at the end of the semester? It really depends. And it's up to us, really up to us. This is why I always advise my students here. This is not something ChatGPT or AI cannot help us with. Yeah, ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is a wonderful tool. We can use it for so many good things during our work or during our daily life, but not this part, because ChatGPT doesn't know what we find interesting. Because it's not us doing the work. So if you want, we can talk about using AI for writing or academic activities later. But here I always tell students, well, the online tools or any other tools don't tell you what is important for you exactly. So this is one part of the problem. Second is summarizing is also a process of learning. By thinking about what is important and what's not, by writing it preferably in your own words, not just deleting paragraphs you find less interesting, or just skip directly to conclusion of the article and keep that. No, by thinking about what's actually happening with the text, you learn things. Yeah, because as many times as we learn something and we think about that and we evaluate and analyze, it gets stuck in our brain, and it is actually equally part of summarizing as having the finally shortened text in the end of the day. Something that helped me when doing my summarizing is writing notes by hand. When you write something, you always want to have it easy and short because no one wants to rewrite a book by hand. This is just something that very often works when summarizing for the learning part, especially. It doesn't have to work for everyone. I'm definitely not pushing it. Just in case you want to use summarizing to remember things easier, handwriting might be something to help you later. And definitely, summarizing is not, at least at this point, merging your own opinions, arguments into the texts. Identifying the most important points of the article or book or anything doesn't mean your opinion about whether the author is right or wrong or something like that. We will get to that, to critical reading and critical summarizing, but at least at this point, it's not about introducing our own arguments. It's just really summarizing what the text is about. There are various types of summaries, especially for the advanced work. Technically, anything can be summarized. Mostly we summarize in academia, in universities, high schools. We summarize academic articles or books, something written. For studying purposes, we usually summarize lectures. No one writes word by word what the teachers say, or at least most students don't do that. But also we don't write word by word video lectures or anything, podcast these days. So we have such a diverse amount of data we can use for research and teaching and learning. So mostly anything can be summarized. I think among students, it's very popular to write academic articles, very good and high quality academic articles about content on Instagram or TikTok. Also possible. So anything can be summarized. And most of summaries are textual. Mostly when we summarize something, it's written in the end of the day. And it's later used for written articles or written books, written papers. But of course, depends on our task and the purpose. Other forms are also possible. For example, some of my students do audio summaries. They read the summary or they talk the summary, they record it and use it later for learning because it helps them to learn when they hear it. Some students present their summaries to me in a spoken form. We have a dialogue or they have a presentation. It really depends on, are you going to submit it somewhere? Are you going to deliver it to your teacher? Is it just for you? It really depends. It's your summary in the first place. The descriptive summary is the absolute beginning, the absolute core. It really represents the main ideas and arguments of the source you have. No additional analysis, just finding what the author writes, what's important, what's there. Analytical summary is a bit more complex, but again, it's not you thinking whether the author is right or wrong. It can also include critical summary. Critical doesn't mean thinking, oh my God, the author is wrong. Critical means, for example, in a critical discourse analysis, academically, what the text is actually talking about, what are the meanings behind, what's the discourse, what's the, for example, ideology about the text, what are the implications of the work, and so on and so forth. And of course, you can have, for example, comparative summary. You can have two studies on a similar topic with different conclusions. So you try to summarize the text and compare that, why the conclusions are different. Very often your summaries will include elements of all of them. But again, it's not, summarizing is not, at least in the first place, saying, this is in the text and I think something about the topic. No, it's your own part later. And it should be very clearly distinguished. Why? I will tell you later. To give you an example, how summary can work in academic writing, not really in students' writing, but academic writing, there are various types of articles you can see it or you can find it in. First is, classical scientific article, how it works. Usually scientific articles, just, to a recap, you have introduction or abstract, we have introduction, and then you have something like literature review, yeah, especially if you are working with some theories, for example, theories of law or theories of international relations. You need to check what the previous authors wrote about your topic. Yeah, I'll show you one of them. Yeah, I just downloaded randomly an article just for the sake of the illustration. It's from authors from United Arab Emirates. Yeah, something you see abstract in the. This is the absolute average article from taking the style of writing. Abstract, some sort of introduction, introducing the topic, introducing what the article is going to be about. And then there is literature review. They are using the concept of hedging for international relations, this type of foreign policy states use, and they go through all the previous writers, not all of them, but at least most important previous writers on foreign policy and the theory of hedging, and they are summarizing what their predecessors wrote about the topic. And then they conclude and for example, choose which methodology or theory they want to use, or they think is the most fitting, or for example, they may go and create their own theory, yeah, anything like that, just for the illustration. There's also the type of scientific article that's called state of art. Yeah, it's not about introducing some very specific new topic. It's about evaluating how a specific field goes. For example, state of art of Central Asian studies in Europe. Yeah, might include, I'm just from the top of my head, how the authors were writing about Central Asia shortly after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, how and if the topics of interest changed during the time, what the scientific works and what the researchers focused on, for example, in the first decade and later, how it changed, yeah, what tone they used, what topic is missing, what topic was, for example, overstudied, that's not really important, what was misunderstood by the researchers. Yeah, it's state of art, how the field works, what are the topics, perhaps what we should focus on instead. And this is basically critical summary. Yeah, you summarize the history of the science in the specific field up to date, and you are critically evaluating it. What's missing, what's wrong, what should be added. Yeah. And of course, everyday academic and student work. Every day we work with so much data we want to and have to summarize one way or another. Okay, how to make the process of summarizing some sort of effective? My advice, yeah, of course, you will find your own strategies. My advice is first read the entire material, at least briefly, at least just go through quickly. Don't start writing a summary of a book or an article from the beginning. You may find out the beginning is really not that interesting and your major topic is on page 576. Yeah. When you have an idea what the entire text is about, yeah, then you can read carefully and start making the notice. Yeah, and most likely or very often you can repeat the process of reading a couple of times or go back to some specific points. As I said, summarizing is not only about summarizing the data, it's about your own thinking, active process of thinking about the text. Writing the summary with your own words is something I find very important. Not really copy pasting sentences is very easy, but it's really, first, it doesn't represent the actual meaning of the text because it's out of context, and it just takes characters, and it's not really your language. It's not really your summary. It's just copy pasting stuff and filling sentences. And yeah, of course, and it depends where you want to submit the summary. If anywhere, yeah, then you refine and revise the grammar or style or anything else. What I implore everyone, all the students, all my colleagues, back up the original source. Whatever you write, so always make sure that you have a note somewhere where you got the information from, which book, which article, what page. What you really don't want to do, trust me, you don't want to do it, is to having a summary of 600 pages book, not knowing at what page it is. Because then for academic papers or dissertations or master thesis, anything, when you are quoting the data or you are using the information for the paper, you have to refer precisely what book, what page, where is it exactly, and you have to then go page by page through the 600 pages book, trying to find where the information is from. It hurts. If it's only one book, it's okay. If it's your entire dissertation, it's a sad story. Yeah, I was there, definitely. They are tools that can help you with that. Any of them, most often things are Mendeley and Zotero. They are really like citations managers that help you to keep track where exactly is the quotation from. Some people or many people actually just keep the track manually. All options are possible. Just be concise and do it diligently, because lost quotations, lost information, it's really so much time consuming to just trying to get back to the original information. Yeah. Was also very useful, especially for articles, the online articles, backup them at your hard drive or printed form anywhere. It's unfortunately very frequent that articles or online context disappears later, and you will have very big difficulties trying to get it back and recover it from the internet. And at the end of the day, you can lose the information at all if you are not able to track it back. And of course, it also prevents plagiarism. Even in unintended, paraphrasing and summarizing effectively helps you to preserve your academic integrity by the way that you don't copy information and, for example, forgetting to add the source. Yeah, this is also related to what I talked about, using your own words. This is something what unfortunately happens. Fortunately, very often it happens just by accident and on a smaller scale. Yeah, but it can just it can make a mess in your writing. So preventing plagiarism by referring diligently to your original sources, super important for academic resources. The applications like Zotero also helps you to keep the original PDFs of the articles, as I mentioned, but it's really up to you how you keep the data, but you have to keep them. Of course, summarizing information from a lecture from last week is something else than summarizing information for a dissertation or a long report for a 5-6 years project. Yeah, and try to find information after 5 years of other work. Nightmarish. Any questions?
Thank you for interesting lecture and webinar information. It's very useful. And guys, do you have any question related to our webinar?
I hope I didn't scare anyone with the ChatGPT. I know, yeah, and I'm fully aware. I think our students in Prague do it too. It's so easy to feed the PDF file to ChatGPT and tell them, "Hey, could you please shorten it to 3 paragraphs?" Well, definitely it works. Yeah, it definitely works. The problem is, is it part of the reading? Or, if you have so interesting book, just, for your own interest, would you tell ChatGPT to tell me, who is the bad guy? Or, what's the plot of the story, you want? If I may suggest something in this regard, for example, my students use ChatGPT for checking their grammar. Yeah, for example, if English is not their first language, you can just submit a text to ChatGPT and say, just correct my grammar mistakes or something like that, which if you should tell the reader as well. You should put there somewhere a short note. I used ChatGPT for correcting the grammar, which is okay in this case, or at least according to the rules of our university, it is okay. It might be different in your institution, so always double check. Yeah, so this is fine, but always and always you are the responsible one. If ChatGPT omits some information or misrepresents some information through this process, it's up to you. As
Yes.
was your son there. Some students, for example, if they are not very well skilled in programming, yeah, they're really at the IT skills, they can tell ChatGPT, for example, could you write a script that scrapes some type of data from the internet? I don't do it, I just know it's possible. So I would have to ask some colleagues how this system works. But again, if the system doesn't work well or there are mistakes, it's up to you. And you always have to say somewhere, I used this tool for this type of work. Yeah. But yeah, always, whenever we talk about ChatGPT or any other artificial intelligence, always, we have to refer to the rules of our institutions. Because, for example, our child's university has some sort of policy for using AI, but another university in our very city can have different rules. Yeah, or for example, even your teacher may have different rules for using ChatGPT and other tools. So yeah, this would be my warning. How important is the abstract section in an essay? Is it important? Well, for academic articles, abstract is usually the reason whether people read the article later or not. Because yeah, if I, for example, want to learn something about plof in Uzbekistan, yeah, I would put some keywords in a research engine and it would spit out 500 articles about plof in Uzbekistan. Okay, how I cannot read 500 of them, and it's too much, I have other stuff to do as well. So I have to determine which articles I will even open and check whether they are interesting. Mostly headlines are the determining thing, yeah, because the deadline tells you what the article is about. And the abstract should tell me something more about the topic, what methodology or methods the author uses, and sometimes or very often also what are the preliminary results. Yeah. So, for example, if I want to learn something about political economy of cooking plof, yeah, how, for example, prices of food affect how often people cook plof in Uzbekistan, something, yeah, I'm just illustrating. I would check the abstract first, yeah, and if abstract says this is not about how much the food costs or the sources cost, the article is about whether the Termes plof is better than Samarkandi plof according to American tourists, well, definitely, I wouldn't read that. So the abstract is actually telling me, should I even open the article and read it? So this is why writing abstract is important in case you want to be a well-established researcher. Do you want people to read your work? So from this perspective, abstract, definitely yes. Of course, if you want to hide your work from everyone, perhaps make your abstract as boring as possible. But in general, abstract is the reason why, if at all, people download the article or even pay for it. Yes, sometimes we don't have access to free articles. Sometimes we have to pay a damn lot of money to actually download the article and read it. And if your abstract is not interesting or very poorly written, most likely I wouldn't pay my money for your article. And yeah, this is, I would say. So yeah, you're welcome. So yes, article is summarizing from the perspective what the article is about, what methods you used. Because, for example, I don't have to be interested in your topic, but your method. Yeah, because I want to use the same method for my article. So I may look how you did it and learn from you. And many authors put there also some preliminary results, just in 2 sentences. It should be brief, short, concise, because I can read 500 abstracts. I cannot read 500 articles. Yeah.
Right. And I have a question for you. For which level of learners we can use summary writing task? For which level of English learners, let's say A1, A2, B1, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think as long as you are able to write sentences, all of them. Yeah, it really depends whether you take writing summary as a language exercise or scientific exercise, or of course both in case. Yeah. But in general, in case you can write very basic sentences, I would even say writing summaries help you with developing the language skills, because it's not dump copy pasting the text. Everyone can do that. My dog most likely would be able to do that if I trained him properly. But thinking about formulating your own sentences about a given content, thinking in a language is the best way how to learn a language. Yeah, children never learn from grammar books. They just think about language and they listen to it and use it. By using it, they learn it. So this is the way how we can mimic the most efficient way of learning languages, doing the language, speaking, writing. Yeah.
As a lecturer, do you use summary writing tasks like for your for students' portfolio or any kind of tasks they are supposed to submit? Do you use such kind of tasks?
Yeah. A couple of them. I give my students very often articles or even podcasts, so various types of informations, anything from written text, audio, video, social networks as well. And I ask them to make summaries or represent the content in our classroom. So they have oral presentation, they present it to me and their other students. I have summarizing sort of also as a part of final exam when they have some content to skim through, and we have a conversation, and they are supposed to represent the most important parts according to that. So summarizing is a part of this as well. And I also supervise their final thesis, bachelor thesis or master thesis. And summarizing is always the most crucial part of the beginning of the writing. Yeah, because I'm not sure how it works exactly at your institution, but in our institution, a student comes to me with a topic, like, for example, I want to write a final thesis about economic relations between Kazakhstan and Russia after 2022, something. And I say, okay, at this point, go through the academic articles we have, go through the database, go through books, go through other researchers currently working on the topic, do the summary of their work, look at what's already around, and identify what's missing. What is the gap you can fill with your own research? Or do you think the current state of knowledge is wrong and you can fix it, you can correct it? Yeah, and this is how we actually get to the real academic topic and the writing is later. Yeah, because you cannot start writing in the middle of nowhere because you don't know what actually is about. And we in academia, we all cooperate. We all discuss about our own works, and we need to know what's actually around. So summarizing, I think, would be one of the first tasks people have to learn when they are anywhere above 6th or 7th grade, especially in academia when there's so much information around it now. Yeah, yes, so much articles, so much databases, so much sources, so many conferences. Yeah, definitely.
But do you have a question?
Yeah. Miss Anna, thank you for the very comprehensive presentation. I really found it very informative, but I'm really curious about one moment whether we can, I don't know, is it possible to summarize subjective or emotional content without altering its impact? Because we summarize, we comprehend the original material, we identify biases or gaps, or we know how to summarize. Maybe students know how to use the summarization techniques across our discipline or other contexts. But I'm curious, I have a concern about summarizing subjective or emotional content without changing its impact. Thank you for the answer beforehand.
Thank you very much for the question. By emotional content, you mean, for example, poetry or some very emotional testaments or something?
Yeah, I mean, in the context of legal background, maybe the testimony of witnesses, the testimony, or just the report of injured party. If we have such kind of context.
Perhaps my question first here would be if we should summarize something like that, especially if it should serve as a basis for some legal procedures later. Yeah, for example, if it's a testimony of a victim of a crime, for example, I am not entirely sure whether we should summarize something like this. And in this case, if I was supposed to do it, perhaps if I had to do it, perhaps I would identify the most important part for the message. Yeah, what's the most important from the perspective of the speaker or of the witness in this case. And if it's possible, I would go back to him or her, to verify whether I summarized it correctly. Especially because it has a strong emotional depth. So if I had to do it, I would go this way, and I would always have the full version at hand for future reference. So even after, for example, 1 or 2 years, I could go back to the original source and verify whether I summarized it correctly at that time. Of course, I said everything is summarizable, or everything can be summarized. Summarizing a painting would be a very difficult task. You cannot summarize a picture or something. You can describe the picture and summarize this description. Definitely not everything in this case can be summarized. Yeah, but in this case, in case of poetry, I wouldn't summarize poetry, because it works as a whole. Yeah, you cannot just cut off half of picture. You cannot cut half of the poetry or something. So they are things that are not summarizable or shouldn't be. And if I had to do it, I would check with the original source, the witness in this case, and I would always have the full version of the text or testimony or anything, just to be sure that I did it well.
Yeah. I have now more clarification here, because sometimes the oversimplification of the words, it usually can lead to misrepresentation of the original message, right?
Yes.
And emotionally charged materials is a bit difficult to convey, to my point of view.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much for the answer. Thank you.
Summarizing is always about losing some information. Yeah. It's always about putting something aside or deeming something being less important for our specific task. The question is what we find important. And yes, it needs practice, or it needs an effort. And this is also why I suggested such strongly to back up all the materials or the articles or the books, if possible, in full version somewhere. Because, for example, after a year or two, you can find out that perhaps you focused on not the most important thing, or you need something more, your topic changed or your approach changed, you need something else that's not in your summary. And if you have the original source, you can do it again. You can do a different summary of the same text. You're right. It can be really very complicated.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, guys, if you have any question, please ask. Guys, do you have any question?
If you have any questions later, you have my email. Feel free to drop there anything you're curious about.
Is there anyone who want to ask question, guys?
It's lunchtime in
Yes, you're right. It's lunchtime.
The time that we can't skip, we can't miss. Very urgent time for the day.
So that's good. The meeting is recorded, so they can eventually look at that later.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I will write it.
Let us your email again. Okay.
Here it is.
Yeah, it's written in chat, guys. You can see Anna's email address. If you have any question, you can ask why we use this email address. Anna,
Unfortunately, I don't have Instagram or anything like that, so don't look for me there.
don't look for there. Okay. If you have no any question, guys, let's conclude. As you see,